So the first Italian, so to speak, to set foot in the new continent was Christopher Columbus, if he was Italian, in 1492. After him, there were other navigators, other explorers, and I think in the 1600s, when New York was called New Amsterdam, the very first recorded Italian who arrived and became a permanent inhabitant of America was Cesare Alberti, who changed his name to Caesar Alberti. After him, a trickle of individuals came, and at the very beginning, most of them were rather high-skilled workers, stonecutters who, for instance, worked on the White House and the Capitol, painters, all people who had a trade, tradesmen of from a variety of fields. But that was a very negligible, from a numerical standpoint, a very negligible migration. At the time, we are talking about 1600s, 1700s, the very large wave of migration came first from England, in the 1700s and early 1800s from Germany, and there were already some problems. For instance, Benjamin Franklin, with his several newspapers and publications, was very wary of Germans and recommended that they would be not allowed to speak German language. He was advocating a number of restrictions on their freedoms in fear that they may not integrate and that rather they would steer the boat in a different direction. So as you see, the fears that the foreigners may change the nature of this nation has always been there from the very beginning. Today, it's the Muslims, right? People are fanatically paranoid about Muslims imposing Sharia law. 1.5 million Muslims would be able to change the constitution by themselves. Anyways, this sort of paranoia always existed. After the Germans, generally speaking, the very first chunk of immigration that caused serious political trouble were the southern Germans, Germans from southern Germany, from Bavaria in particular. What was the difference? That these people, Bavarians, were Catholic. Somehow, in addition to the language difference, the culture difference, there was also this element which at the time had an enormous relevance. So here come the Catholic Germans. The next wave that was recorded and which really marked, in a way, the moment when migration starts occurring in mass proportions by entire ethnic groups was the migration of Irish. In the late 1840s through the early 1950s, Ireland suffered a devastating famine. It was called the potato blight. All of a sudden, literally, potatoes, which were the main crop for the population, this crop failed miserably. There was a rot or some kind of a fungus or parasite that wiped out the entire harvest. In a matter of 2-3 years, 1 million Irish died. 1 million Irish migrated to the United States, and 1 million was left in Ireland. So out of a population of 3 million, initially, 2 million left the country, either dead or coming to the United States. There are other political implications, the relationship with England and so forth, but that was the result. When the Irish came, no, they were not welcome, because they were Catholic, because there were so many of them. and they were seen as very dangerous. And in fact, there was a political movement, it was called the American Party, something like this, which engaged in systematic harassment and attempted to either block immigration or in some way or another limit the integration of Irish in every possible way. They became known as, this party, the Know Nothing. They had all sorts of terroristic activities going on against the Irish, destroying stores, attacking schools, whatever you want. They called themselves the Know Nothings because whenever they were interrogated by the police, their standard answer was, I know nothing, or maybe I don't know nothing. That described a very, very tough set of circumstances for the Irish. If you go to see local newspapers at the time, you can even do a search on Google Images and you put in Irish immigration propaganda, anti-Irish immigration propaganda, you will see depiction of Irish as apes, the usual armamentary, the usual stuff that you see in political propaganda. Now, the Irish had one asset, one very important card to play, and it was the fact that they spoke English. So despite the fact that they came mostly dispossessed, didn't even have a penny in their pockets, that they were mostly peasants, but at least they were able to integrate rather freely and speedily into society by virtue of the fact that they spoke the language. Another large group that came later were the Eastern European Jews, because of internal affairs of the Russian Empire, which at the time went from Poland all the way to Siberia. Ukraine, Lithuania, all those little states, independent states, were under the control of the Russian Tsar. The Jews were given the option of either die or leave. Those who were not killed in large massacres, called pogroms, were expelled and in very large, significantly large groups came to America. Now, aside from issues of anti-Semitism and so forth, the Jews, when they came, they had a certain number of strikes against them. Well, they were not Anglo-Saxon. No, they were not even Christian. But the great advantage they had was the fact that all males were literate. Because they are the people of the book, all males, and a significant amount of women as well, did know how to read and write. Not only, but they among themselves had a common language, whether from Romania or from Lithuania, going from the Urals to Poland, and I'm going to put up an image here. They all spoke a common language called Yiddish. Yiddish is a hybrid of German and Hebrew. So among themselves spoke Yiddish. If you go to what are called ultra-Orthodox areas in Borough Park and other areas of Brooklyn, you will hear that they are speaking this funny language, so to speak, and in large part they're speaking still Yiddish, the common language of European Jewry. And I'll interrupt here briefly.